to the February 25th, 2020 City Council meeting. Roll call, please. Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Holy Spirit, we gather together as the elected officials of our community, charged by the people to discern our future together. We are a diverse body brought together by the same Spirit. We pray that we will be faithful to the work at hand, to set aside our own personal agendas, to seek out the greater good. Open our minds and our hearts to listen in for your will for us and bestow upon us your wisdom and grace. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, council approval of the agenda as presented and revised.
I'll move approval of agenda as revised.
Second.
Any dissension, discussion? We have an agenda. Special presentations, Chamber of Commerce donation to the city of Hazel Park.
Mr. Mayor, Carrie Valamacy, the hardworking Executive Director of the Madison Heights Hazel Park Chamber of Commerce, is here tonight.
Well, thank you very much. Good evening. It's great to see you all. One of the things that the Chamber really strives to do is to give back to the community. So this evening, we're pleased to present $500 to the Hazel Park Animal Control.
Wonderful.
There's a real check. It's not just this one. This is for photo purposes.
Mr. Mayor, would you like to go accept the check for photo purposes, please?
Our animal protection
Yep,
officer
come
here.
on up here.
It's totally floppy. It's Amazon special. So there's the real one. And this one is for the queen.
Can you get a...
And I look forward to seeing you all Friday at the State of the Cities.
We will all be there.
Bright and early.
Thank you, Carrie, for all that you do for our community. When we were building the park, Carrie was out there, I think, every single day building with us. So thank you so much.
And she also recruited businesses to help bring in lunch, which was really nice.
That was good stuff. Thank you. We're lucky to have her.
Thank you again. Community Foundation of Southeast Michigan.
Mr. Mayor, I have Recreation Director Serene Papakian here with several special guests to announce a wonderful grant opportunity that was gifted to the city of Hazel Park. Serene?
Come on up. I didn't see her in the audience. Sorry, Serene. I saw you in the back. I thought you left.
Just to introduce everyone, this is Sarah from the Community Foundation of Southeast Michigan, and this is Lorena, the Director of Recreation for the City of Ferndale.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you so much, Serene. So I'm with the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan and partnering with the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation, which is a foundation established more recently in Western New York and Southeast Michigan. And they are a spend-down foundation focused on 4 main areas, but one of them is around youth sports and youth activity. So in partnership with them, in 2018, we commissioned a study of basically youth activity in Michigan, and it found that only 13% of kids in Michigan or Southeast Michigan get the recommended minimum of 1 hour of play or activity a day. So it's a pretty sedentary population overall, and that crossed all 7 of the counties that we support. So in response to that, we've been working with the Wilson Foundation and implementing a number of efforts to both increase access to youth sports and activity, but also get kids active. And one of the ways we've been doing that, based on our work groups and task force of advisors, has been increasing the access of sport equipment to communities. So communities told us, you know, we have places to play, we don't always have the balls for them. We have maybe an ice skate rink, we don't have ice skates accessible. Sometimes there are teams or coaches that have rec leagues and they don't have all the equipment they need for practice or soccer balls. So in response to that, we did a grant program and we ended up with 15 sites. We're so pleased that both the city of Hazel Park and the city of Ferndale are both recipients of that grant. We are in the process of moving the grants now. We should be done within a couple of weeks, and at that time, We're so pleased that we'll be able to award a $50,000 grant to the City of Ferndale and a $50,000 grant to the City of Hazel Park over 2 years so that our wonderful recreation leaders can implement the sport program. And that'll mean that'll help pay for some staffing, help pay for equipment, help pay for space, storage, things like that. There are multiple other recreation departments across the region who are getting grants as well. We have at least one site in each county. Some of the sites are not recreation departments, they're nonprofit organizations like after-school sites. And then the other source of grants are libraries. So, for example, Pontiac Library is a recipient, and they're just increasing their alternative lending program by allowing sport equipment to be lent out. So we're really pleased about this. We have opportunities. We've already brought groups together remotely through like a web-based call. We're so pleased to be working with Serene and also the City of Ferndale. It's been a wonderful opportunity in just setting everything up. So we look forward to this partnership, and we will help support our grantees however we are able to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very much.
Thank you so much for your generosity.
Thank you, Serene.
I would, of course, like to thank the foundation, and additionally, I would like to just make note that this opportunity came to us by working cooperatively with our neighbors, and that's why Lorena is here today from the City of Ferndale Recreation. Neighboring recreations have to stick together, and this is exactly what we did, and we're seeing the benefits now, so I'm very grateful.
Very nice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Serene. In that note, I did have a chance to speak with the Ferndale City Manager yesterday, and one of the things that we did talk about is more increased cooperation with our recreation departments. So I think this is a sign of things to come. Again, thank you so much for your generous gift to our community. I promise you we will put it to good use.
With the Ralph C. Wilson, I don't know if anybody's heard on the radio, they have these commercials about sign your kid up for soccer, write a check. Get him into training class, write a check. Get another course of soccer, write a check, write a check, write a check. They're very effective commercials, and they are put out by the Ralph C. Wilson Foundation. They're effective how, what you're saying, you're addressing exactly what you're addressing and making it more well-known. So those commercials are effective. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again. We really appreciate this opportunity. That takes us to the proclamation, Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month, April 2020. Whereas abused and neglected are suffered by children in the communities regardless of age, race, gender, or economic situation. Whereas 1 in 10 children will be sexually abused before the age of 18. Whereas this reported maltreatment is only a portion of the overall problem threatening our children, for so many cases go unreported, and today's technology has brought with it a new dangerous form of child endangerment, the online predator. Whereas the devastating consequences of physical and emotional abuse of our children affects the community as a whole, finding solutions needs to be attended by the community as a whole, looking out for one another. Whereas Care House of Oakland County works to break the cycle of the child abuse and neglect, provides a protective circle of light and hope for the better life, advocates for the safety and protection of children and partners with community organizations and agencies to offer programs and services aimed at preventing child abuse for the future. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Michael Webb, Mayor of City of Hazel Park, County of Oakland, State of Michigan, do hereby proclaim April 2020 of Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month of the City of Hazel Park, and call on all citizens, community agencies, organizations, businesses to increase their participation in efforts to prevent the abuse of our children in today's society, therefore strengthening the protecting in the community in which we live. Thank you. You can't tell that one really hits. I had a lot of friends growing up that were abused, and that one really hits me pretty hard. Civic announcements, I'd like to open up to civic announcements. Anyone have any civic announcements from the audience? Anyone from the city council administration have any civic announcements for
Mayor?
this month?
Promise Zone dinner, Tuesday, March 3rd. Who needs a ticket? $65. It goes for a great cause. The Hazel Park Promise Zone works to ensure that our kids get to college. They're the funder and scholarship provider of last resort. If a student does not have enough scholarships and aid, they will make sure they have at least a scholarship in enough money to go to Oakland Community College for 2 years. They're also masters of providing and finding additional scholarships and college aid for our students at Hazel Park High School. Before the Promise Zone, Hazel Park High School students got approximately $600,000 in total aid and scholarships every year. Now with the Promise Zone, it's approximately $3.5 million. So it's an extraordinary amount of money that the Promise Zone, through its capacity as an access network, is able to leverage for our students, as well as skilled trade programs, and a new program that we have for grant through the Ballmer Foundation. We now have a college success coach that stays with the kids, and the students, I should say, they're adults, to make sure that they are successful once they transition to college. So all in all, a very valuable and amazingly successful program. Come on out and join us on Tuesday, the 3rd. It will be a nice dinner, 5:30 to 7:30 at Hazel Park High School. Tickets are $65. Call my office. I'll sell you as many as you want.
Thank you. I'll be the bearer of bad news. If everybody, I think everybody knows, that 75 is going to become a big thorn in our, wear all summer.
You're kinder than me.
I'm being very nice. And we're going to all have to be patient in getting around town. So being without the Myers Bridge, the John R. Bridge, and the Woodward Heights Bridge, and all the turnaround bridges, the state of Michigan MDOT has not been very nice to our community, and we've tried every approach trying to get them to delay, offset, change some of the timing of getting the bridges demolished, or trying to find avenues to find a way to provide service by busing for our children to cross town to their school, and also to provide extra police protection. But we will, as a city, provide that extra police protection in our communities where we need it, and we'll have someone at our call. We will not give up our 3-minute response time. And that being said, any other civic announcements? I don't like that one, but it had to be said.
State of the City is Friday morning.
Yeah, State of the City, Friday morning.
Wakey up.
What
all
time
of
was
you.
that? 7:30. Why so early? 7:30 in the morning.
Carrie.
She left.
She left.
Yeah.
See, she got out of here
I
before
missed
you could
out
ask
on
that
that.
question.
We have to get this to like 8:30. Waking up at 7:30 and coming to give us.
Well, you know what?
7:30.
We
Starts at
we can
7:30.
do it after work. Yeah,
Getting
it
there
starts at
by
7:30. You got to get there by like
Yeah,
7.
I got to get there like 6:30.
You
I
don't
know.
even have to do your hair. Come on, man.
Really?
When you become a gentleman a certain age, Ms. Sullivan, you have to style your hair in such a way so it makes it look like you still have some.
I still have to color some of it once in a while.
Yeah.
Right.
Gray does follow appeal after a while. Anyways, it gets us to public discussion. Anyone from the audience want to come up and give us some discussion of any kind? Jesse?
Alrighty. Jesse Robertson, 23353 Hoover Avenue. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have come before you tonight as a member of the Hazel Park Historical Commission, and actually to address some potential confusion over some topics that were discussed prior, including and on the February the 11th, and things that might have stemmed from that. For those of whom now have not seen the prior two meetings, back on the 28th of January, the City Council voted to indefinitely suspend the Hazel Park Historical Commission, erroneously justifying this action by citing behavior by the distinctly separate Hazel Park Historical Society. 2 weeks after that, on the 11th of January, I brought this up, as well as illuminating how extreme and unprecedented this action was, as well as how it cast into doubt the city's commitment to both fairness and transparency. I received quite a response from my commentary. One could even go so far as to call it an earful. Unfortunately, it revealed that there was still a large degree of confusion present about the subject. Equally unfortunately, much of this response was reserved for after the meeting had officially ended, and thus are not on public record. Nevertheless, I will attempt to clear up any confusion here, as well as respond in public. To start, yes, suspending a body casts disgrace upon all members of that body. This is doubly so when the exact wording of the motion, as is in the approved minutes, and trimmed from what was said, suspend all activities of the Historical Commission pending an investigation. This makes it clear to Council Member Amy Aubrey, who gave this wording, and everyone else who agreed to it, that there was suspicion of wrongdoing on the part of myself, as well as the other 6 current members of the Hazel Park Historical Commission. There is no way to honestly characterize this as anything more positive than a verbal slap, and a myriad of strong arguments that it was even worse than that. Secondly, one retort that was given to me was that I should have brought this up to the Hazel Park Board of Education. This entirely misses the point. I was not given an implied accusation of wrongdoing by the Hazel Park Board of Education. They did not suspend my commission, and they have absolutely zero control over this particular subject. I am not a trustee of the Hazel Park Board of Education, and thus I have zero control over what they do. The Hazel Park Board of Education, also popularly known as the School Board, is an entirely separate entity from the City of Hazel Park, operated by 7 trustees that, analogous to the Hazel Park City Council, are answerable directly and exclusively to the voters. And again, I have no direct connection to them, outside of course, being a constituent that can vote for them. Additionally, 2 days after the City Council meeting on the 11th, I was informed that a meeting was scheduled for the Historical Commission to, quote-unquote, discuss the current status of the Hazel Park Historical Commission. Unfortunately, I personally had to decline because that date and time scheduled conflicted with a doctor's appointment I'd had to make over a month in advance. In turn, I found that the Commission's chair had noted the prevailing opinion was that as, to quote, all activities of the Historical Commission, end quote, had been suspended, this would include or preclude being able to hold any meetings, as that is a form of activity. I'll admit that this is logic I cannot really find fault with. Taking this into account, such a meeting itself reasonably would be dubious at best. Perhaps what I found alarming was that this meeting was not listed publicly, and it was most certainly not to be located at the usual location for a Historical Commission meeting, which traditionally has been at either the Hazel Park Historical Museum, and before the museum's, especially before the museum's opening, at the Hazel Park Library. Likewise, rescinding the suspension of activity for the Historical Commission would require a public vote of the City Council, which could obviously not happen at a closed, unannounced, and untelevised meeting. This whole combination, once again, has brought into question the city's commitment to fairness and transparency. Again, this whole ordeal has stemmed from events and actions that were partaken by entities outside the scope and purview of any organ of the City of Hazel Park, be it the Historical Commission, the City Council, or the City Administration, or any other. But these actions had resulted in the City Council responding with direct, harsh action, which has threatened to besmirch the good name of several volunteers who strive to make Hazel Park a better place. I do hope that now, with this clarification out in public, the city can undertake some more good faith efforts to affirm their commitment to fairness and transparency, and to demonstrate to all that Hazel Park is a city where great things can happen. I have seen some, in fact, good signs tonight, as I will admit that it has been a while since the city council has addressed, boards and commissions at all. They have been kind of an afterthought. But the study session earlier tonight was, I will say, a good sign, something I actually very appreciated, and hence why I had to personally watch. So with that, I do hope that things will improve looking forward. I thank you all very much.
Jesse, you left something there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments from the audience? Seeing no one, closes public comments. Council, we need approval of the consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda items 1 through 8, Mr. Mayor.
Support.
Any discussion on those items? Dissension? I have a couple of discussions, items I want to bring up. We're putting out some temporary traffic control orders to better handle some of the traffic around the schools during the road construction of 75. And we're also doing a couple of different things up around Shevlin Bridge to help with some of the travel across town by removing some barricades temporarily. And it takes us to administrative reports. Item 1. An ordinance to add section 15.
You approve the consent agenda?
Yeah.
Did we do a vote on the consent agenda?
Yeah, we,
We just had a
Dissension.
motion and an approval.
No, there
approval,
was.
no dissension.
Okay, then bang.
No dissension, no, we had discussion. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, I didn't catch it either, I'm sorry.
I got it. In order to add section 15.54 entitled Neighborhood Enterprise Zones to Title 15 Buildings and Construction, section 54 entitled Neighborhood Enterprise Zones to state that all properties eligible for the Neighborhood Enterprise Zones certified must be inspected prior to the sale of Hazel Park Building Department. Second reading.
Mr. Mayor, the second reading of this ordinance, the administration requests approval.
City Council,
I'll move approval of the ordinance as stated.
Second.
any dissension, discussion? Motion carries. Administrative Report 2, Resolution Adoption Neighborhood Enterprise Zone Districts.
Mr. Mayor, the administration respectfully requests approval of this. Jeff Campbell is here if you have any questions regarding this particular agenda item.
Very briefly, I will just say this is hopefully the last action we have to do before we send it to the State Tax Commission and hopefully receive approval on this. But basically, I tried to incorporate everything that was discussed at the meeting, that this is single-family detached in 2 zones that requires owner occupancy if they're to receive a certificate. And they also have to be new at this time, and then new single-family attached, assuming they get proper zoning in Zone 1, or Zone 3, I'm sorry. Zone 1 and 2 are single-family detached.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I want to thank Jeff Campbell. He's done an extraordinary amount of work on this process.
Item 3, consideration of license applicant number 15. We already did.
Not on 2, we did.
Yeah, we did.
So, did they move in support yet?
I thought we did.
I'll move approval of adopting the Neighborhood Enterprise Zone District.
Support.
Dissension, discussion? All right, I thought we went through that part and had discussion at the end. I thought we had discussion at the end, sorry.
The mayor has not eaten yet. He is hungry.
No, I'm
City
sorry.
manager hasn't eaten yet.
No
one's
way
eaten
has.
yet.
But anyways, consideration of license applicant number 15. 21015 John R. Road. Secure transport licensing for, what's the name on this one? Modus. Active medical and recreational marijuana licenses within the state of Michigan.
Mr. Mayor, the administration requests approval of this license. This is our first recreational license for transport. He already has a temporary license. He's functioning well. There are no complaints or issues. No reason not to approve this.
I'll move approval of the application number 15.
Support.
Discussion, dissension?
Quick discussion,
Sure.
and this goes for the next 2 items as well. I just want to thank the administration for giving us such a comprehensive report on this license that we've requested for. It's even great, it even tells us that this gentleman employs 40 employees. So I think it's fantastic to see the economic impact that people requesting these applications are having, as well as all of the additional information
And-
provided.
Many of those employees are Hazel Park residents. I know some of them personally. They're very satisfied with their employment with Motas, and they speak very highly of this company. So thank you for your kind words about our report, and once again, I must thank Jeff Campbell for his assistance.
Any more discussion? Dissension? Item 3 passes. Item 4, application 22 for 21928 John R. Road.
Mr. Mayor, these are applications for 2 licenses with respect for lab services. It is the same company operating both facilities. Their volume of business is far too large for the single facility they initially had, so they had to seek another building. We're glad that they did. This will replace a problematic business that we've been trying to deal with for several years. So the administration recommends approval of both licenses.
Can I get a motion?
I'll move approval of application number 22 for the safety compliance.
Second.
Support.
Discussion?
I was excited about this one.
Dissension? Item passes. Number 5, consideration of application 2324. 22016 John R. Road.
It's
Again,
the
this is
same
the
explanation.
Same thing. This is the other licenses.
We had to do the same license.
I'd like to make a motion to, I'm cutting you off.
Go ahead.
It's the same gentleman, it's the
It's
same
the same
company.
gentleman.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve number 5.
I will support. Thank you. Spread the wealth.
Discussion,
I do
dissension?
have a quick question. Do we know, are they eventually going to consolidate these two?
It's the same operation, but because they are 2 separate buildings, they need to have 2 separate licenses per state. There was no room for him to expand his current lab, so he got a building that's basically just down the street. It's easy walking distance. It's
I was
a
just
block
curious.
away.
I was just curious if there was plans to eventually.
Half a block.
It's a short block, yep. But they are kind of consolidated now. It's just,
I'd just like to say I am so happy to see the building that's going to be renovated be renovated.
Yeah.
this is a good one.
Yeah. It is.
I can't think of a single person in this town that's going to miss that building.
Nope.
And the rendering is beautiful as well.
Yeah.
So I was so excited. I was
Looks
like,
nice.
please let me make this motion.
Bobby's
Anyways,
happy.
any more discussion? Dissension? The owner has a license. Does the owner want to come and say anything about his potentially new business or what he has going on?
Hi, I'm Avi Zalin, 29 West Jarvis Street, owner of Steadfast. We are, we've been in Hazel Park since 2015, a struggling business for much of the time, and kind of building, expecting the regulations to come in, and once they did, we got a very nice business, and we're kind of already pound for pound, probably the best lab in the industry, just in our little tiny building here. But now with the new building, we're going to be able to expand by, the first phase of expansion is going to be a tripling of what we're doing now. And then we probably can go up to a factor of over 5 with that new building. And we don't plan to actually close 21928 because that, just a tremendous amount of work went into that business. And to have that thing up and running, I can't even see any time where we're going to be shutting that down.
Great.
Thank you for pulling off what I thought might be impossible and getting that business owner to sell.
It hasn't been easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6, an ordinance to amend Chapter 5.04 Commercial Marijuana Facilities of the City of Hazel Park's Code of Ordinances to protect the public's health and safety and welfare for first reading.
Mr. Mayor, we have Jen Zielinski, our consultant from Danaskis and Associates, also our lobbyist, also our chief advisor to our legal team regarding these ordinances. And she is here. Melissa and Amanda are also here if you have any questions. And Mr. Campbell is in the back room. He is also familiar with it. We have 3 lawyers tonight, so.
Someone put a microphone in front of Jen, because you know I got questions.
Perfect. Good evening, and thank you for having me here again tonight. Looking forward to going over this, so let's dive in.
Go right ahead.
Okay. looking for direction from you.
I'd
Who's
like to
first?
actually have,
Why don't you give us
I'd
a
like to have.
synopsis
I-
of
I
what,
would like to have her, yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
right, give us a synopsis of what this ordinance is and what it allows, and then that way they will be able to have any questions they have after you give that synopsis.
Okay, perfect. I wasn't sure who would provide the summary. So this amendment to the existing commercial marijuana facilities ordinance will allow for, I believe, 2 locations for consumption, which is a license that the agency has created in order to allow folks an opportunity to consume their cannabis in a safe environment. You obviously can't consume it while you're driving in a vehicle. You cannot consume it in public. You can't consume it on federal properties or even maybe various multi-tenant living situations. So the agency created this license in order to allow the folks in Michigan or travelers to Michigan an opportunity to consume their product. The second additional opportunity that the city is providing is to allow a cannabis event to take place on the grounds within the city. So that cannabis event is only allowed to take place under the scrutiny and the advisory of a cannabis event organizer that is licensed and vetted by the state of Michigan as well as the agency. So the amendments that we're seeing here tonight include some opportunities to allow for both of those types of one facility and another event.
Very briefly, it addresses the transfer of license discussion that was briefly brought up by the mayor and other people earlier, that you can transfer it after a 3-year ownership where it's been operating. So it's not so much we're avoiding the bait and switch, but they don't have to hold on to it forever.
Basically, what it is a bar for marijuana, correct? Without the alcohol.
No.
Isn't that what a?
Kind of, sort of, maybe, but not a perfect analogy.
How would you put it?
That's a legal term.
More like a hookah lounge.
Right.
So there's no consumption of alcohol, no consumption of nicotine, no food. A patron may bring in their food if they so choose, but the facility cannot provide. They can have a vending machine, but they cannot cook or prepare. One concept that has been circulating with regards to a consumption establishment is to create it in a more broader opportunity for the folks that have this license, in creating some sort of membership opportunity where it's not just for consumption purposes, but it's also for events or maybe different classes that might be offered. Maybe it's a cannabis educational course, maybe it's a yoga class, maybe it's, there's other opportunities that can be built around this with the spirit of cannabis kind of at the middle of it, if you will.
So on the consumption, I have a question. As we know, marijuana can stay in the system for some time. You're not allowed to operate a vehicle while under the influence. So my concern with the consumption, while I support it in concept, my concern is what precautions are going to be made to make sure that people are not leaving these facilities still under the influence.
So I would say much to that of an establishment that serves alcohol. It will be up to, the folks that are operating, if you will, to, I don't want to say necessarily cut somebody off because they're not serving, they're bringing in their purchased product, but certainly maybe to bring attention, hey, hold on, wait a minute. And then I would think that you could mandate this, but to have the local taxi drivers and or a number for Lyft or Uber where they can facilitate their ride home, or have the folks that are operating or running the facility that night the opportunity to call rides for those folks that they feel need it. So that is completely and entirely up to this board if you want to incorporate that into your ordinance.
I have a tag-on question. So, because the word bar was brought up, and now you're talking about, Amy was talking about people leaving under the influence. My question is, does the state of Michigan currently have a reciprocal law that then tracks back to that consumption lab, or consumption space, rather? So similar to,
The Dram Shop Act?
yeah, I was going to say similar to a Dram Shop Act. So,
I
are
guess
they-
I'm not familiar with what.
Okay.
so, well, I'll explain since I'm
Yeah, you can explain.
career bartender.
Or I've got 3 lawyers.
Serve
here
Safe
that can explain.
certified. So in alcohol provisioning and alcohol serving situations, you have to have, there's a responsibility level where you're not allowed to leave a place where you've consumed alcohol and you are visibly intoxicated without somebody on staff intervening. And if there is an issue with that, there's like kind of precautionary things that you have to do as a bartender, as a server, that keep you out of the liability circle of that. So, for instance, there was a bar in Lake Orion, and somebody left the bar and then got into a drunk driving accident, and the bartender then was found liable because they hadn't done any precautionary efforts to prevent that person from driving. There was like, off of the top of my head, I believe there's like a minimum $5,000 fine, loss of your ability to bartend, and then they can also sue the establishment itself. So I'm wondering if the state of Michigan has any kind of laws that they're looking at creating to address that, or that will come along with these consumption licensing.
To my knowledge, at this moment in time, no, we don't have anything effectively established by the state in regards to that. I will certainly follow up and speak with the agency relative to that and see if they have had any consideration or are moving towards bringing that into a part of the statute to mandate that as law. And I'm sorry, how do you spell the act?
It's a Dram Shop, DRAM.
It is just DRAM.
Yeah, it's been around for a long time.
It might be 2 M's, actually. It's been
Yeah,
locked down
again,
forever, but they've
I've
made
got-
it more. It's been more kind of finessed out, and
Sure.
it's really been reinforced with the Mothers Against Drunk Driving and those groups being more vocalized and really looking to prevent those accidents and things happening.
Okay.
And it's something that, as a person that serves alcohol, you're empirically aware of. Like, there is no part of you that doesn't know about it. You have to take Serve Safe, all of this fun stuff. So there's, certifications behind it and all sorts of.
Yeah, and with this act, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're bringing their own in, correct?
Correct. They're
So
not
there's
being
no, we're not serving them, so the liability is going to be on the consumer, probably 100%. I've got 3 lawyers, right, and the building owner possibly, but not on the city. So,
There's another note here where it says 18 plus to be able to enter with the guardian, but 21 to enter in sales consumption area. I like to just negate the whole 18 plus and just stay 21 or older.
Okay.
I'm actually in support of say 18 or older. It's similar to me.
That's the question I have. Sorry.
Well, I mean, it's similar, for a discussion, it's similar to when you go to a concert and you get marked either between, if you're 18, but you're underage for alcohol, or you get marked if you're old enough to be served alcohol if you go to a concert. So maybe, let's say Tommy Chong, maybe you're 19, you want to meet Tommy Chong, but you can't go because you're not 21. I'm throwing out scenarios.
no,
that we
I
can
think
relate
that's
to.
a valid scenario. I
So-
think-
Let me give you another
I
scenario.
think
that
there's a way to,
The way I see it is, you can drink alcohol at 21 years old, and if you take your 18-year-old in and give him a pop or whoever, he doesn't get high from you drinking the alcohol, and whenever the person's smoking the marijuana next to you, it does. And fumes kind of vape over to his side, I'm sure the 18-year-old's going to get high.
Well,
It's not illegal for 18-year-olds to use recreational marijuana, though, so that's
I
the
didn't-
difference between alcohol.
It is.
it is. They have to, you have to be
21 and
21 to
up.
use
Oh, it's
recreational
S
marijuana.
and
18 is medical.
But
Sorry.
some things to consider here on this. You can use medical marijuana if you're 18, even under 18, if you have a medical card.
Right.
And also, 18-year-olds may be able to function as that sober driver
That
for
was next
somebody
on my
who
list.
is older and imbibing. In terms of secondhand smoke from marijuana, that's largely a myth.
Contact
Again, in my previous, I am a psychologist. I did.
It's not a myth.
I was the senior addictions therapist for Detroit Medical Center for a period of time, and it even for drug testing, people would come in and they'd say it's secondhand smoke. You know, our standard response was, you know, BS.
How much you been around?
Because, well, you'd have to be like locked in a vat with.
You're talking about a room
You
here.
have to be locked
whole
in
bunch
a
of people.
vat.
However,
with,
they're
you
also
know,
going to have really good ventilation because
Yeah.
it's not going to
Yeah.
be able to leave the premise, just
Right.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is scientifical empirical evidence to support that secondhand cannabis smoke does not get you
Correct.
high.
Is you high.
You really have to be in an environment that is completely sealed off and
Would have
a
to be
lot of
locked in
smoke.
a tightly contained vat with
Yes.
Andy Liqueur
And it
for
was-
5,000 years. So,
I definitely remember reading a report that said it had to be like an extended amount of hours as well to
Yes.
get the large amount of exposure.
Yes.
And then the like actual effects were still like half-life of.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot, there actually is a lot of data on this, and I actually have this data because I went through this data 20 years ago more than 20 years ago when I worked in that field. And I can allay those concerns. Those are probably, you might smell like pot, but you're not going to get high. So that's kind of a myth.
I would maybe recommend if council's in agreement with allowing 18 and up, that we at least, on the administrative end, they need to include in their application their plan to identify somebody who is under the age of 21 to ensure that they're not consuming.
Mr. Mayor, do you feel like that's a fair compromise?
As long as there's someone there to monitor at all times.
Okay,
That
could
the
we,
18-year-olds are in the area
Jen, Melissa,
out of the sales and consumption
could
areas.
we have those changes and modifications today for the second reading, please?
I'm just looking out for the benefit of a person that may not be wanting to consume, but also be around, like you said, Mr. Chung.
If
Yeah.
the business owner wants to say on their own accord, in their application is, this establishment is for 21 and older, council will have to determine if that's what they're gonna decide.
But it also gives them a choice whether they want to
Exactly.
zone out an area to have the 18 to 19 and 20-year-olds
Right, they could,
that may not want to, that cannot partake of that.
Right, but
So
the,
it's kind of locks in an area where they have to provide a safe zone.
right, but the agency is assuming too that if you do have your medical marijuana card, you do need to have a safe area to consume that, and if you have your
I'm
parent
not
with you.
saying that, I'm just,
So I think.
you have a card, you're fine.
right, but we're not beating up on you. We agree with you that this could be a problem.
Yeah.
What
It's
we're
the
trying
ones
to
that don't have the card.
come up with, what we're trying to
yeah.
do is come up with a fair and equitable way to let 18-year-olds participate who may not be smoking. And also identify, as Amy Aubrey said, those who should be smoking and can smoke versus those who cannot. And I think something similar to, I mean, we've all had this, you know, when you go into a establishment, they're serving alcohol, where you get one stamp, like Amy said, if you're
Or a
over
bracelet.
21,
We
or a
use
bracelet or
bracelets.
whatever. I mean, we were all kids too. We all licked the thing and tried to make sure we, you know,
Doubled it.
we were 21, even if we weren't. I don't know, maybe I was the only one who did that, but.
I did that.
So I think we can balance this and protect 18-year-olds and also give them an opportunity.
Are we in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion, discussion, any other questions?
Got more.
Okay.
Going just a page backwards on page 12, letters DV. I was a little, and maybe this is just, I'm interpreting it different. but it says designated consumption establishment shall provide for all marijuana to be contained within the main building in an enclosed locked facility. I just want to, I guess maybe as I'm reading it again, I just wanted to make sure that the locked facility was applying to when people weren't in it.
Right.
When people weren't in it, as weird as that sounds, when I was initially reading it, I was just reading it as designate.
We can, here comes Jeff.
I think
Yeah,
what your concern is the fire and
Right.
stuff.
Yeah,
No,
it's
but it's, you can't get in without probably permission where you
That's
can
what
exit.
I thought
so.
Why
the
don't we-
intent was, but the fact that it was just like, you can only consume in a locked facility was where my brain went. I was like, I don't want.
No, we're not
I-
going to lock anybody in. That's illegal and
Maybe the
fire
word
hazard.
secure
What
instead
was
of
the band
locked.
up north in the
Secure,
fire?
yeah.
Maybe the word secured instead of locked.
Yeah, it was
Might be a,
horrific.
Yeah, it is, establishment shall provide for all marijuana to
Oh.
be contained
Right.
within the main building. And just on a side note, the consumption establishment cannot sell. So whatever product they might be locking up at the end of the night would either be, if they're attached to a retail facility and they've got additional storage, vault space, if you will, possibly it's the employees or the owners'
Or-
particular product.
A member of a group may have their own locker and rent that locker from the facility, and that's what they would be locking up there is
Like
their
a cigar
own
bar.
supply there because their spouse or significant other hates the smell of this stuff.
Yep.
So don't smoke it here, go down to the club and smoke it, get away from me.
If that's what we're talking about, that makes sense, but just in my head, knowing
Yeah.
that they weren't selling and that somebody from the outside was bringing it in, to me, the only time marijuana was going to be in the building was when people were in the building. So that's why it was just a little,
No, that's a good
caught me
question.
off
I mean,
guard.
I think you should give the consumption lounges the opportunity to store, one, for to Ed's point, and two, if you're attached to a retail and they need additional space in order to lock up their product for the evening, they have that.
So I don't know if there's a way to maybe clarify this particular one.
We can tweak that language to make sure that no exits will ever be locked, and this is for storage of marijuana and restricting access to people who shouldn't be.
Let us maybe, yeah, if there's
We can do
storage
that.
allowed in consumption facilities,
Clarify
then,
that.
Yeah.
Melissa will have that clarified for you on second reading.
sorry, it was just something that kind of caught me off guard, and I didn't have a lot of time to read this, so.
And one, do you have more?
I got one more. FFF, page 13. It says a marijuana event organizer may apply to the city to facilitate a temporary marijuana event for no more than 7 consecutive days. I do not agree with a 7-day long event.
So that is per state requirements.
Really?
Yes, the state allows for 7 consecutive days.
It's no more.
It's no more, it's just
Your
consistent with
event is-
state
I
law.
mean, like Memorial Day weekend is 5 or 4.
That doesn't mean that we have to approve
Right.
it, though. I would leave that up to the administration or the council. Right. That's just, right,
a lot happier.
right. You can't more than
Okay.
7 days. Yeah, we want to have, more.
Okay, I was like, my preference looking at that, it was like most beer festivals and even Hash Bash. Hash Bash is only 3 days.
Right.
So I was just like, all right, 7, okay, but if that's the state, but
Well,
Yeah, so
I mean, the
this,
city does reserve the right
Yep.
to
Yeah.
give the number
I
of days.
saw, but I
Yeah.
just didn't want an applicant getting overzealous.
No, we will, I'm sure as we move through this, you guys will give me good direction on what we think is reasonable here.
Not
Mr. Gajos did text me something. He had an idea, and again, we spoke about possibly putting information at the establishment for Lyft and Uber and taxi places, and Mr. Gajos suggested we also require them to put up a public information notice about the hazards of vaping. So it's up to you guys, but I thought it was a good.
idea.
That's a good idea.
Thank you. Sorry, Jared, when he's not writing a book or being a police reserve officer or you know.
Rewriting rewriting all of the
making sure that
employee handbooks.
cable
or-
TV works for the mayor's State of the City on Friday. It's, he's.
Climbing the back bar at.
With all new equipment.
Yeah,
So
Rock.
this now works.
Tell
it-
everything about Jared.
Anything else you'd like to add?
That was for the.
Well, based on this most recent comment, if it pleases council, you could also put in some requirements to list some of the hazards, one for driving under the influence.
Yes.
And two, for any potential ill side effects that the plant can cause.
So I just sat through a presentation with Oakland County. Oakland County is currently working on a grant. So the Oakland County Health Department has put together materials already that cover all of this. Perhaps we can just reach out to the Oakland County Health Department to make sure that owners can just have access to those materials, and they can just put them on a little brochure guy. So it makes it easy, and the information's already been put together and available. Based on my knowledge of marijuana, they appear to be pretty accurate resources as well.
Okay.
So
I think that's fabulous.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I have a, Andy and I were just noticing that on YY on 12 and at number 13 on BBB, they both say insert operational hours, or one does, and then the other one says insert hours.
So the council needs to identify in which the consumption establishments may be operational within the city, as well as the events. Do you have a particular time frame in which you want these establishments, or the one establishment, to close for the evening, or in which the event needs to cease for the night?
I would think
Is there any precedence on that anywhere?
we gotta pass
Anywhere
this
at
on
all,
first
ever?
reading, so we should
Like,
plug.
right.
Colorado,
Any
maybe.
Colorado? Any?
We-
have any?
No, nine's too early for events and use.
Noon to 10?
I was thinking, noon to midnight.
That's what I was thinking.
Yep, noon to midnight. Let me throw in noon to midnight now. The mayor's idea, I agree. And we'll go noon to midnight on first reading and think about that before we pass on second reading.
Can I throw something in there? So the consumption facility is for somebody maybe that can't consume at home, and if this is a medical product, this is something that they might need to consume in the morning?
I was just, wake and bake is
We can, let's play, we'll come up with,
a thing.
Let's see how this goes.
why don't we,
Literally just said.
I just say this, the Tommy event is scheduled, I think, for earlier.
Yeah, it's a thing.
okay, 9
So-
to 8,
so
okay.
I'll figure, well, we can look at it. You can,
Okay, let's go 9 to midnight, okay? Well, why don't we go
smoke a
noon to
cigarette till
midnight for consumption lounges and, special events, 9 to midnight?
I mean, the business is gonna, if they wanna open later, but I think we should give them the opportunity.
We need to plug hours in so we can pass this on first reading, and then this gives everybody several weeks to think about those hours.
I thought this is more for the entertainment value.
No, it's
This was
also,
consumption,
it's
YY is.
also like what
Consumption
Melissa
slash
and Amanda pointed out, is that you could have somebody who's a medical patient and their spouse just hates this, and they gotta get out of the house to smoke it. So, let us think about that. Let's plug those hours in for right now, and when we go on second reading, we'll try to have some more data for you with an amended version of those hours.
And
Is that, if that's okay? We're plugging them in right now, so we have to plug something in.
Like
YY is noon to
Do
midnight.
medical 9 to 12.
could have different hours than a temporary event.
right,
9 to 12.
so
9 to 12, 9 to 12.
just for consideration, as we move through and bring this back for a second reading, for the events, the event could start earlier, and you could flip the switch at,
The event-
10, 11 o'clock.
The event comes with a special permit for the event for the 3 to 7 days. or
Right,
whatever.
Right,
And we can, in maybe the events, say, special events be determined by council, or by the administration, whoever's
Special
going to
events have
approve
to
these
be
things, right.
Determined with the permit.
Right.
process.
Special event hours would be for the permit.
yep,
And lounges could then go 12 to,
yep.
or 10 to midnight or something.
And for the events, the event could always start earlier, and consumption could begin after the event
Right.
has already been 2 hours started.
This is where, again, marijuana stays in the system. I'd rather they started to consume early and then be able, maybe towards the end of the event, to actually be able to drive themselves home safely.
So that might be a concept or an idea as well. If you let the event go till 2, sales stop at 11, or sales stop at midnight, whatever it may be.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be a cutoff in order for that safety, but I wouldn't want to say you can start your event and then you can consume later, because I'd rather they consumed earlier, honestly.
So, yeah, we will insert 9 in the morning until midnight, and we can have further discussion after we've all had time to kind of maybe process that at the next meeting.
Okay. Any other information we want to throw at her?
Can I just throw out a thank you for the red line version in the email? It makes it much easier, at least at home, to get through and find the changes that were made. It's something I've asked for a while, so I appreciate that. Do you guys have a color printer? Because that would have been
Sometimes.
really handy.
Yeah, there's
It's gray lined.
It's gray lined.
It's gray lined.
Gray line, but when we're sitting.
What more do you, it's gray lined.
Saves you money on that reading.
Yeah.
I'll buy you a printer.
What's that? Well, Tim does, because he's in water. It's an enterprise.
We had a motion
Money.
to pass this on first reading with changes.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Did everybody get an opportunity to read through Part 2 of the ordinance and have, nobody has any questions on this?
On the second part of this?
So it's profiteering.
Yeah, I saw that.
I got this like an hour before we had to be here, so.
If anybody has,
I've been through it, but I haven't been through it thoroughly.
if anybody has any questions between now and second reading, okay, contact Melissa, contact Jen, contact Amanda, okay? We've got stuff here for you to look at, okay? So Melissa is back to work now. So again, we can get onto your requests very quickly. So scrupulously read this and be ready to bring back something, for final approval on second reading at the next meeting, okay? That gives us some time. And again, Damascus is Jen is very responsive. The whole firm is responsive. They are now our lobbyists in Lansing. I'm so pleased that we have this new resource and capability. Is something we've lacked for too long. So this is, there have been great additions.
Ed, if I may piggyback, thank you for the opportunity to allow Damascus to work with the city of Hazel Park. We have very much enjoyed getting to know all of you and the residents, and look forward to continuing that relationship. There's a lot of things happening at the state level, not just with cannabis, but in all other things that can certainly impact a municipality.
And boy, do we need the help and the protection. And the league does a great job, but sometimes there's conflicting interests amongst the members of the league, and sometimes some things are so unique to us, it's difficult to get them interested in lobbying on our behalf. And we haven't had a lobbyist now since 2004, and this is a good thing, so.
Well, on behalf of Damascus and myself, thank you. We are very much happy to represent the city of Hazel Park, and of course have nothing but the best interest for the folks here and the residents of the city at heart.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? Any more anything? We need a motion for first reading with all the changes.
I'll move approval of the amendments of ordinance, section 5.04.
Second.
With all the changes. that we
With the
discussed.
changes.
With all the
With hours
provisions.
and restrictions and notifications.
Yep.
Second.
Just more discussion, dissension, passing on first reading. Okay, got through that part of it. Takes the Boards and commissions.
Mr. Mayor, the administration recommends the appointment of the following individuals to the Board of Review: Mr. Gary Harrison, Mr. Michael Mazzucchelli, and Mr. Tom Selman.
I get a motion from the board.
I'll move to appoint the 3 members.
Support.
Discussion, dissension. They're passed. Tabled items. The new business. Communications from department heads. How's everybody?
Jeff Campbell, anything? You're
Good to have you out
striding
this
toward the, oh, he's getting his stuff. He didn't want to talk.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for the temporary changes to the traffic routes and everything.
One thing, Mr. Mayor, that I will request of you is to give the ability to the city manager and/or the chief of police and/or the director of public works the authority to create whatever traffic control orders are temporary traffic control orders are necessary to facilitate the city of Hazel Park working our way through the nightmare that's going to be I-75 reconstruction
For the next 6 months.
for the next 6 months.
I get a motion to that?
I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager, the police chief,
And the
DPW
DPW
director
superintendent.
to make traffic control orders as they see fit in the best interest of the community during the construction of I-75. And I'd like to request that you have the authorization to execute, but if you could please at least submit a report.
We will bring those to you for your formal approval every time we make them at the next council meeting. I just need to do it temporarily, just in case we've got
I would,
Right.
I would like to
situation.
support that with a comment. I'm really glad that you brought this up because I did email both the chief today and the city manager about a specific request for them to consider a temporary traffic change in an area that I experienced a whole lot of traffic in today that was really unusual. So I appreciate the city being able to be prepared for that. So
Could the
that's my
motion
support.
maker include in their motion that the purpose of this is for the public health, safety, and welfare?
For the public health,
Public health, safety, and welfare.
and welfare.
And this is a 6-month.
For 6 months, yes, we can enact.
Motion maker got that?
Yes.
Got it?
I still support.
We had discussion was all done. Dissension? Any dissension? Motion passes. Communication for the city attorney.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Jeff?
Anyone?
Jeff ran away.
Go on.
City manager?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to echo what you said at the very beginning. The city of Hazel Park is very displeased with MDOT and with this plan to widen I-75 and the construction schedule that they've imposed upon this city, which calls for the demolition of 3 bridges at the same time. City of Hazel Park was originally one of 3 entities that was opposed to this project. I saw Jack Lloyd in the office, he is there. Jack Lloyd is probably sleeping, but he is in the audience. Jack went to SEMCOG, and Jack, when Jack was mayor, remember, we opposed this project, and the city of Hazel Park said, no, we didn't want it. Remember that? Yep. So we've been on record for many years opposing this. We were not consulted on the construction schedule. We attempted to get them to make some changes to the construction schedule, and they've made some minor accommodations for us with respect to access of the Shovelin Bridge, which we're grateful, because they were leaving that up, but the way they had traffic configured, it was of no use to us. So, but the rest of that, the biggest problem we had is the demolition of the Myers Bridge and the Harry pedestrian bridge at the same time. It's really going to create a hazard for the school kids that attend United Oaks, and it's going to impact our response time for police and fire. We're going to do the best that we can to overcome these hurdles and challenges, and my police and fire departments are awesome. They'll do what they can, but this is a problem. So we've had contact with our state senator as late as today. We're still hoping for some sort of either modification in the demolition schedule or at least an acceleration in the replacement schedule so those bridges are down for a minimal amount of time. I hope to hear something before the end of the week and be able to report some more success, but this was a strange contract that was put together by the Snyder administration. It's a public-private entity, and this entity will not only do the reconstruction, but they will be responsible for the maintenance of this area of John R. and the service drive for the next 25 years. So this isn't even like any other MDOT project that MDOT's ever has had, and that limits our ability to make changes to this contract as well. So we're trying to advocate as much as possible on everyone's behalf. I've had questions about what are the hours of construction. The hours of construction for demolition basically will be 24 hours for 2 weekends. And after that, the hours of construction call for them to be doing construction from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. So that's where we're at today. That's what they've given us. Our ability to enforce restrictions, because this is a state project and they have state permits, really are somewhat negligible. So we are at the mercy of the state. The biggest threat to Hazel Park has always been state government and the state of Michigan and bad policies coming out of Lansing. As I say at every meeting, Michigan's system of municipal finance is fundamentally broken, and that is fundamentally broken as a result of bad policies at the state level. So we will do the best that we can to get through this. Our employees are amazing. They will work extra hard to make sure that everybody is protected and has access. We're in discussions with the school district, and I'll be calling Superintendent Krupe tomorrow to sit down with her and our police chief to look at different routes for kids to use. The Highland Bridge will still be open. Again, this is a problem. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about some of the statements that were made about the Historical Commission. We did give, what's that? I'm not going to steal your thunder. I will leave you a whole sky to thunder in. I just want to say that we did extend an olive branch to them. The comments made tonight were inexplicable. I don't understand, and I'll be happy to speak with that individual after the meeting, but I will say to the public at large, there were members of that commission that were operating beyond the scope of their authorization with respect to the establishment of the Historical Commission and the ordinance that provides for that commission's operation, and the mayor and council took justified and appropriate steps to protect the public interest when they suspended operations of that. That suspension casts no aspersion, nor does it cast any shadow over all individual members of that commission. That was never the intent of the mayor and council. That's not the intent of my comments here tonight. Certainly not everyone on the commission is responsible for anything that was done in a manner that was inconsistent with the city's best interest. So I want that statement made. I do not have any repeated statements to the contrary of that are simply false and red herrings spoken for who knows what purpose. Okay? What we had intended with the Thursday meeting was simply a discussion for how to put everything back together and make sure that everything was operating in an above-board manner in the best interest of the city of Hazel Park following proper procedures. Nothing more than that. Wow. So I guess even that's trying to be mischaracterized. So I want the residents of Hazel Park to know that the mayor and the council are protecting their best interests in doing what they need to do to ensure that boards and commissions are held accountable to the law and to the people of Hazel Park. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilperson Aubrey.
So, I brought a prepared statement. I wanted to address some of the stuff with the Historical Commission because I am the individual that made the motion to suspend the commission pending an investigation. This was not directed at all members. The intent of this investigation was to identify specific individuals that were responsible for specific actions. So if you can bear with me, I originally had bullet points for this meeting that we were supposed to have. I have since turned these bullet points into somewhat of a statement that I'd like to read, so that all the public is aware, in face of good transparency. So Jesse, I hope this satisfies your concerns of transparency and everything taking place on camera. So last month, the City Council unanimously voted to suspend the activities of the Historical Commission pending an investigation. A meeting was scheduled for February 20th with the Historical Commission members, the city manager, and city attorney. I too had decided to be present to explain firsthand why I made the motion to suspend the Historical Commission. However, we received an email from the chair of the Historical Commission, Charles Gladue, earlier that day stating that no members would be in attendance, not because they had doctor's appointments, but because it was not in their best interest and they requested to have an attorney present. Various reasons were listed, in addition to that I'm not going to get into, because the point of this meeting was really to provide clarification directly to the members of the Historical Commission and allow them to respond to our inquiries and ask us questions in return about how to restore the commission to good standing and move forward with what is in the best interest of the city. Since members failed to attend the meeting, I'm going to make that information available now. Two main problems brought about the decision for the suspension. The first problem was that the Historical Commission has failed to follow the requirements of Chapter 2.50, the Code of Ordinances. This includes such things as an annual report to City Council, a published inventory, proper record keeping, notices to the city administration of membership changes, etc. And the commission has operated outside the scope of the lease of the Erickson building, which states in Article 11, use of property by tenant, that the premises is to be used, quote, exclusively as a City of Hazel Park Historical Commission museum. We do know that they have operated outside of this purview. Problem two, after negotiations between the City of Hazel Park and the Hazel Park Superintendent over the lease of the Erickson building, currently being used for the Hazel Park Historical Museum, the city was surprised to hear that on January 27th, the Hazel Park School Board voted to approve a lease agreement between the school and the Hazel Park Historical Society. At no time was it disclosed to the city by the school board that negotiations were taking place with the Historical Society, and in no time did the Historical Society, led by a Historical Commission member and its chair, Charles Gladue, to notify the city of this conflict of interest. The suspension investigation was to identify the members responsible, not to punish all members of the Historical Commission. But until we knew the members responsible, we felt it was in the best interest of the community and of the city to suspend the Historical Commission and host a meeting to get to the bottom of the problem. To address the first problem, we were hoping to use the meeting with members to go over the requirements of the Historical Commission and aid them in developing procedures and offering support to get them into compliance with the ordinance. Standard things such as reporting resignations of members and providing minutes to the city clerk are not being followed, and we need to find solutions. In addition, the city was willing to make adjustments on its end to make updates to language where needed to incorporate the museum into the Historical Commission's purpose. We are not against the Historical Commission. We are not against the museum. If there were concerns over being able to accept donations, apply for grants, then the same process that was followed by the Hazel Park Arts Council could have been started by turning the Historical Commission into a nonprofit. This was even stated and made available as an option. Instead, a society was created by a commission member without consultation of the city administration and its attorneys for the best solution to reach that goal. This was reckless and has caused harm between the relationship of the city administration, city council, and the school board. To address the second problem, if the Historical Society had been negotiating with the school board to take over the lease of the Erickson building holding the museum, then surely I cannot help but assume some members of the Historical Commission were aware of this. However, the fact that they never made anybody with the city administration or city council aware of these negotiations is clearly being done, in my opinion, in personal interest and bad faith. It is important to note that all items donated and the contents of the Historical Museum, pursuant to the ordinance, section 2.48060, are property of the city of Hazel Park. the Historical Society seeking a lease of the Erickson Building without first negotiating a partnership with the City of Hazel Park and its Historical Commission is an attempt to circumvent the authority and the role of the city in the operation of the Historical Museum. These actions are inexcusable, and those members responsible have failed to act in the interest of the Historical Commission and the museum. It is our job as council members to not only advocate for its residents, but to protect the city's assets. Some people may view this as an attack, but I want to be clear. Being held accountable is not an attack. I say this to all Historical Commission members. I know you are passionate about the city's history, and you want to serve on this commission, and I want you to be there. It is my hope that you can come to us and honestly state that you are open to putting in the hard work to implement the corrective actions necessary and get things back on track. We ask for an open dialogue and your commitment to do what is not in your best interest, but the best interest of Hazel Park. We're willing to work together to find solutions and support the Historical Commission and the museum. Thank you.
May I address, please, Mr. Mayor, to follow up with Amy? This issue has been festering, and it was very appalling when Councilmember Sullivan asked for an inventory, which is required, and she was personally attacked and embarrassed in an open city council meeting for merely enforcing and asking for a requirement of the Historical Commission. In addition, to have a member of a historical commission go ahead and register as a society, a historical society, the conflict that is there for the donations of the important historical artifacts and documents for our city, they should not be in conflict between whether they belong to a society or they belong to the commission. It is the commission. It is the property of the city of Hazel Park, and the residents of Hazel Park is the foundation of our history. And to have somebody be in possession of those things and create themselves as a society and then later want to take possession, that is a huge conflict, and it's unacceptable. To ask for open dialogue does not have to be at an open city meeting. Individuals should work together, and the fact that not one person was willing to work with this council further proves what the problem is here. And the problem is a lack of respect for the requirements of the city and a lack of respect for the individuals who have been seated by elective choice of our residents here in the city. It is not to embarrass anyone. It is not to attack anyone. To have our council members enforce what they have been elected to do is doing their job, and that should not open them up to be attacked personally for merely enforcing things as simple as an inventory. These are where the issues are lying. And Councilmember Aubrey has now opened up and asked if there are any members of this commission who are interested, who want to have dialogue. She has put an open invitation there to make that happen. So these are some of the ongoing issues. I hope that this is made clear and that this attack on council for doing their job stops now.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, again, I can't really even add much to what Councilwoman Aubrey said or what our city attorney said. They both did a fantastic job with this. But I want everyone to know the members of the Historical Commission are not victims in this situation. And they should not be allowed to attempt to seize the mantle of victimhood during this entire process. I think that Councilwoman Aubrey and City Attorney Schwartz did an outstanding job of summarizing the issues that affect this entire relationship between the city and the Historical Commission. That meeting on Thursday was nothing more than an attempt at corrective action and explaining a proper, lawful, and accountable way forward for the Historical Commission to operate the museum and serve the residents of Hazel Park in a way that was transparent and consistent with the law. It was an olive branch that was extended. Anybody who attempts to make themselves a victim in this whole process, shame on them. And the attacks on Alyssa Sullivan and Amy Aubrey are disgusting. They're wrong. They are completely nothing more than attempts to obfuscate the issues that surround this situation. So I thank Councilmember Aubrey and City Attorney Schwartz for their succinct and on-point comments on this issue. Excellent explanations.
Councilman McFall?
I don't have anything.
What? Okay. Councilman LaCuro?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to again say great job to Serene Papakian. All our staff does a great job every day. But what a unique thing and way to work with another community and get a grant that's going to affect the kids and get sports equipment in their hands. You know, that was pretty cool.
Serene does awesome things all the time. I'm thankful for recognizing her.
Our staff is outstanding all the time, so this was tonight. Also, I wanted to thank all the applicants who came out for the boards and commissions tonight. Even some stuck around for the regular meeting, but the City of Hazel Park operates with volunteers. We could not do what we do without all the volunteers. I mean, so thank you for coming out and taking an interest in the community that you live in. In the immortal words of Tom Selman, if you love somebody, tell them. If you have children, hug them and tell them you love them every day. Thanks for coming out.
Mayor Pro Tem Sullivan?
I want to thank Councilmember Aubrey for her succinct clarification of some misinformation that has been repeatedly represented here and online on Facebook. There are quite a few things that have been spoken that are untruths, and they keep being repeated. And just because you repeat an untruth doesn't make it true. Ed said during one of our council meetings, you can have your own opinions, you cannot have your own facts. And that is probably one of my favorite things the man has ever said, because it's ultimately the truth of it. I want to thank everybody that came out tonight. I want to thank the applicants, mirror that message from Andy LaCuro. I want to thank the Chamber for making that wonderful, generous donation to our animal control. I want to thank Serene for her hard work daily on promoting parks and green spaces and activities for our community, from the young, the old, and the middle. And then I also want to thank the chief for being present and for being proactive in this upcoming chaos that is about to ensue, where we become an actual island in Michigan. I want to again thank everybody for coming out and tell everybody to be safe, be kind, and really just be kind. It's not worth it. It's being unhappy, being mean, being cruel is just it's not a good way. It doesn't do good things for your heart. It doesn't do good things for people around you. So, thanks.
I thank everybody for coming out and all the applicants that applied for the boards and commissions. It's always important to have volunteers fill those seats when available. I'd like to thank our staff for doing an outrageous job of getting everything done every week, every day. They work a lot of hours, and it's really imperative to them to do the job for us, so the city can function in a way that we function with 3-minute response times to the fire and police, the book work and the accounting work, and then the DPW. You take for granted that the street's gonna be clean or something's gonna get picked up, but look at our streets. Look around our neighborhoods; they're clean. Look at other communities; they're not that clean. We have our good water systems here. We got to, Tim Young is keeping on top of the water stability and we for years we took it for granted. It's just water. It's Michigan, and till the Flint crisis, and then we all had to look around and say, is our water good enough? And now the new tight mandated laws and everything, it's made it real nice to have the people in place that actually does the work. And to our lawyers that provided, opinions that may help us and may not. Who knows? But we've had different
Well,
opinions.
we like to think they help us.
I hope they help us.
Well, I look at lawyers like doctors. You don't know what's going to happen.
This is a true statement.
We're not.
You don't want to need them unless you have to have them. So,
The law guides.
but anyways, there's one thing that I want to bring back up. And that's the proclamation I read earlier this evening. Children is the best thing of our lives. It's the biggest portion that we live for, our lives for in helping build our community and having an awareness for our community. Without our children, where would we be? And that's where, you know, that's the biggest enlightenment of our lives. Where would we be without our children? And if you don't have children, you have nieces and nephews. They're just a bigger part of that, of your life as well, and I'm sure. And with that being said, I'd like to say goodnight, and we need to go to an exec session, I hear.
I can brief you all individually, I think. Do we need an exec session?
We're here. Yes, no?
Looking mighty hungry.
If we're here, you might as well do it.
You want? Okay.
Or,
Pending litigation.
I get a motion to go to.
Motion to go into executive session to discuss pending litigation.
Yes, the flood
I have a
litigation.
support for that?
Support.
Flood litigation and
Okay.
Flood litigation.
potential Hazel Park versus.
Does anyone have a conflict with the flood lawyers lawsuit? I want to make sure.
No one here, this is very important. None of you here are
Part of the
are
lawsuit.
part of the lawsuit. You cannot be part of the lawsuit. No, that was just very bad, horrific.